Hello, everybody. My name is Magnus Skog, and I'm an equity research analyst here at Erik. With me today, I have Louis Gomes, CEO of AAC Clyde Space. He will have a presentation for about 20 minutes, and then we have 5 minutes for questions. And if you want to ask any questions, just write it in the comments on the YouTube video. So go ahead, Louis.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to present the company to you and what we are doing and what we are achieving recently. If we could go on to the first slide. So we are a space hardware and space services company. We are operating in the new space arena. That is probably the fastest growing sector of the space industry. So this is a sector that has been growing exponentially over the last few years, and we expect it to continue that growth over the coming years. And you can see in there the numbers. In this slide, you can see the numbers of new spacecraft being built and being launched. The value of those is growing quite substantially. And this is a mix. This is due to a mixture of new technology that is opening new windows to new applications. But also the fact that certain things like, for instance, launch cost is coming down substantially. What this is allowing us is, as we are making our spacecraft smaller, more capable, we can launch more, we can actually start doing applications, we can start servicing applications that in the past would require quite large, expensive satellites. Now we are actually doing satellites that are much smaller, much lighter, much cheaper. And what that allows us is to actually democratize the applications, to actually develop a whole new range of uses that 10 years ago no one was using space for. And what this is doing is attracting quite a lot of new investment into this industry, but also a whole new range of applications. Things that 20 years ago you couldn't actually do, even 10 years ago you couldn't do, now we can. And because of that, the interest in the applications, the interest in the data from space, in communications from space is increasing. And as such, the demand for these services is increasing. And as this increases, we need to actually put more satellites in orbit to actually service that. If we go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. If you could just click through the animation. Thank you. So AAC Clyde Space is a company based in Sweden. We are headquartered in Uppsala. We are listed in Nasdaq Nordic. And we are the result of a junction of coming together of several companies. And we started our life as all these companies were companies doing components, that is onboard computers, power systems, solar panels for satellites. Usually working as a supplier to other manufacturers of satellites. But in the last few years, in the last 5, 6, 7 years, we have been actually starting to build our own satellites. And this way, we actually go straight to the users, straight to the customers that are using satellites, and we are actually selling them spacecraft. And these satellites are fairly small, so we tend to focus on a range of satellites that go from what we call 1U CubeSats. These are 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter, 1U up to about 50 kilo spacecraft. And this is the range that is growing the fastest. The small size means that these satellites are easy to launch, are much lower cost to launch, what allows us to actually offer much more competitive prices to the market. And this is actually exploding the uses of these satellites. So we have production facilities in Uppsala and in Glasgow. We now have actually we have just closed on an acquisition of another company working in the same area as we are in Delft in the Netherlands. And we have announced also the acquisition, and we are going through the process of acquiring a company in Fairfax, Virginia, in the United States. And what all these centers do is they actually produce different components that we then integrate in satellites, both in Glasgow and in Uppsala. So in both locations, we are building satellites. In Glasgow, we currently have about 7 satellites going through our workshop. We have one starting now in Uppsala. And we have a long history. All these companies actually that form the AAC Clyde Space Group, we have actually been working since the mid-2000s. And what that means is that we have quite a lot of experience in delivering equipment and solutions to space. So if you look at the 1,500 or so spacecraft launched, small satellites launched since the late 1990s, you'll see our components in a large majority of them. And these components might be just a solar panel or a battery, but it can be an onboard computer, a structure, or even the satellite itself. And this just demonstrates that we have built a huge amount of experience and a huge amount of knowledge, a knowledge database, not only in terms of formal knowledge, so we have reports of everything, we know our equipment works in space, but also we have the people that actually have the experience to build successful missions to space. And we are a company that is growing. So our revenues last year were 66 million SEK. We are now expecting to do 100 million SEK, but with our acquisitions, we actually expect to go over 100 million SEK. Of course, this is dependent on our US acquisition closing still this year. But if that happens, we hope that we can achieve above the 100 million. We have a strong order backlog. It has grown 150% to 164 million SEK in Q2 of this year. And as I mentioned, we have two recent acquisitions, US-based SpaceQuest and Hyperion Technologies in the Netherlands. And these companies actually bring to us experience not only in components, but also in building missions and actually exploiting satellites in orbit and constellations, something that is very important for our business going forward. Next slide, please. So we operate in a rapidly growing market. We are in a very strong position. We have built experience, we have built reliability. People know us. We have quite a good reputation on the market. And this market is growing very fast. So it is now currently expected to be worth around $42 billion between 2019 and 2028. And our company, we are present globally, so we serve customers in Japan, in Korea, we have customers in Africa, we have in South America, a lot of customers in Europe, a lot of customers in the US. We actually do about 30% of our revenue from US sales. And because we supply these turnkey solutions, we can work with our customers from, if they just want components, we can work with them on supplying those, developing those, building those, but we can also build entire spacecraft. We can work with them on finding the solutions they need for their purposes and for their uses. And the way we are actually approaching this market means that we can capture more and more of these growing small satellite market. A lot of this value of these $42 billion I mentioned are on the services side of the market. And this is an area that we have been growing, and we are pioneers in developing space as a service. Something I will talk a little bit more further down this presentation, but that is something that is allowing us to actually capture more of that growth coming in the future. Next slide, please. So what we sell, as I mentioned, space as a service. So this is what it's effectively our growth engine. You could say it is the fastest growing sector of the new space market. And this is basically where we actually supply full solutions to our customers. We operate the satellites for them, and we just deliver data for them. And this is something that is attracting more and more interest because it separates the complexity of solutions in space from the customers. So the customers that are specialists in using that data don't have to be specialists in space. We are the specialists in doing space work. And that comes from our sales of missions. So we build missions, we build spacecraft, we design, we manufacture, we build them, we integrate, we test them, and then we operate them for customers. And some customers will just want that as a turnkey. They will come to us and say, build me a satellite, launch it, and then hand over the keys to me. And we can do that, and we do quite a lot right now. And then we have the base layer, the thing that allows us to do all of these, and that is the space products. These are the basic components for all of that. And we design in-house, we build, we own our own designs, we own our own technology. And you can see on the picture, you can see a variety of these products. You can see some computers, some onboard radios, you can see some batteries. And this variety of products are then built together to make satellites. And because we own all of these designs, and we can adapt them to the needs of our customers, but we can also build variants, but we can also do very optimized designs into spacecraft. So next slide, please. And just give you a flavor of the things that these satellites are used for. So one use case, and this is one that we announced this summer. So we are working with Trafikverket in Sweden, and with Saab and with Orcom in US. And what we are developing is a new communication system and navigation aid. So many of you will be familiar with AIS, that is Automatic Identification System, that is currently used worldwide to track ships all over the ocean. And the next generation of that is what is called VHF Data Exchange System. That is a more sophisticated version of that, that adds a two-way communication capability. So not only now you can use the same system that you used in the past to say, I'm ship such and such, I'm here, my trajectory is that. Now you can actually communicate back. You can send messages back to the ship. And what this allows is a whole new range of applications. And one of which, for instance, is the enabler of autonomous shipping. So the fact that we can now transfer a lot more information, ships can give information back to a control base about how the engines are doing, navigation, safety, everything, and then you can send instructions. But even on ships that have crews, you can send things like weather charts. You can send a whole new range of products, and you can use it for emailing and even for small messaging in a system that is much cheaper than the existing shipping communication systems. So this is an example of what we are using satellites, and this will be done. The demonstration that we'll launch in 2022 is done with a small satellite that is 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters by 30 centimeters, smaller than a shoebox. And this will do all of these things. And then with this, we can build constellations. The objective in the future is to have a constellation of these satellites. And so you can provide a real-time service wherever you are in the world. Next slide, please. Another example, we are working with NASA in the US and with a US university, and we built Seahawk. And Seahawk is effectively an hyperspectral imaging system. And what it does is an ocean color instrument. So it measures the color of the oceans. And by doing that, what we are measuring is the quality of the water. And mostly it's looking at algal blooms and phytoplankton. So you can see in there, for instance, an algal bloom on the coast, the greenish stains on the water, on the ocean. And that can be an indicator of pollution, but can also be an indicator of where, for instance, the fish stocks are, because fish like to eat those algae. And so this is the kind of mission that in the past used to require a spacecraft that was about 1 ton, a very expensive instrument, very large. And nowadays we do these again in a very small satellite. This is done with a satellite that is again a 3U, so it's a 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter by 30 centimeters. And this is a very small package, and it can now actually go around the world and measure the health of the oceans. And this is important not only for scientists and governments, but also for some industries. So, for instance, the tourism industry. No one likes to go to the beach on your holidays and not being able to get into the water because the waters are polluted with algae. So the ability to actually monitor pollution sources is something that has actually a very big value, big commercial value these days. So these are just examples of what we are doing. Next slide, please. And the business model for all these missions traditionally has been what we call turnkey. So we design, build, and launch, and we have some services that we provide to our customers. But more and more, many of these customers are not specialist spacecraft operators. They don't have the tools, they don't have the people, they don't have the desire to operate spacecraft, but they want to use the data. So they're coming to us and they are saying, could you please actually build us, manage everything, and then we just use the data. So last year, we signed a contract with Orcom, one of the world's largest providers of machine-to-machine communication systems and tracking systems, where we are building 2 satellites for them. We will own those satellites, we will operate them, and we will deliver to them just the messages, the AIS messages that the satellites capture. So we'll deliver it to their servers. So they don't have anything to actually, they're not concerned about the satellites. That's something that we will do for them. And this is something that we are seeing more and more customers come to us with that. The advantage for a customer is that they don't have to invest in the control stations, in the ground networks to communicate with satellites. They don't have to hire specialists to operate the spacecraft. They don't have to do any of that. We already have that. We already have that infrastructure. We already have those people. So for us, we can just do it and increases the value of our contract. These are also contracts that are usually quite profitable. So we usually will be operating in 30-40% margins rather than the traditional 10 to 15 on just selling hardware. So we are selling a range of services in this case. These are also contracts that usually have bigger values. And our target is always to actually be cash flow positive or almost cash flow positive on these contracts. And in that way, we usually would expect about 30 to 50% of the total value of the contract to be paid by the time we launch. So that will pay for the build and launch of this satellite. And then it's just the operations throughout, and we get paid regularly then over the lifetime of the satellite every month against performance targets. And we see this as the engine that will grow very much this industry. As more and more applications and more uses are being designed for these small spacecraft, the big obstacle is that many companies do not have the desire to actually control satellites, and as such, they have not been evolving their businesses. And so we see that this is an enabler for those companies to actually start now using space as the source of their data and of their services. Next slide, please. And in summary, and in terms of our customer base, we started many years ago by working with universities and research institutes. But over the last few years, and particularly in the last 2 years, we have seen a dramatic increase of what we would call experienced and well-established satellite companies. So people that have worked in space, that they know how to use space, they have very strong business cases using space services and data. And I mentioned already Orcom, but I can also mention Eutelsat. So Eutelsat is one of the world's largest satellite operators. And they came to us and they are buying 2 satellites from us as a precursor to their future small satellite constellation. And what this shows is that these very demanding companies with large, long experience in the space sector, they trust what we are offering now. And that is very encouraging, and it's very good to actually, for the industry and for ourselves, because that shows that we are now seen as a mature industry. We are actually offering those kind of operational, commercial solutions to the market. Next slide, please. In terms of competitive landscape, we operate in a global market. We have several companies that we are continuously competing with, one of which, GomSpace, is listed actually also in Stockholm, like ourselves. But this is a selection of those. These are the ones that we usually compete more regularly against, and we all offer variants of the same business. But probably the distinguishing market is that we are already doing space as a service. So we already have a contract. We are already operational on that, and with the acquisition of SpaceQuest in the US, when that closes, we will actually have a constellation of satellites delivering services from space already. So we're already going through that journey of transitioning of only offering hardware to offering services. And And that is something that is sometimes underestimated by many companies. They say, okay, you sign a contract and it's very quick. Now, it takes time, and you need to actually grow the internal processes and the ways of doing that. We have already done that for Opcom, so we are already in that process of being able to deliver services on a regular basis to our customers. Next slide, please. We have had, despite the issues with COVID, we have had a very busy year. So we have won several orders. We have developed several new businesses. We are actually starting production of spacecraft in Uppsala. Traditionally, Uppsala was a part of the business that manufactured components, but we are now starting to build spacecraft there also. We won a grant from the Scottish government to actually develop a new technology for highly integrated software-defined satellites. We then signed with Opcom. We signed with Opcom and Saab, and together with Trafikverket, the VDES contract. And one thing that is not actually mentioned on this timeline, because it's pretty recent, just last week, we signed a public-private partnership with the European Space Agency and the UK Space Agency for the development of a next generation of spacecraft and concepts for constellations and space as a service. And as part of that, we will be building 10 spacecraft that will demonstrate a service, an advanced service for space as a service. And that's a transformational contract that we have right now with the agencies. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, we are acquiring 2 companies. Hyperion Technologies on the right. We have closed that contract already, so the company is already fully owned by AAC Clyde Space Group. We acquired that company because of the components they have that complement very well what we are doing already, but also because they are working on some really exciting new technologies, particularly laser communications for small satellites. So we are working with them. It's a company we know well. We already used many of their products, and so it's going to be a very good coming together of the companies. SpaceQuest is a company we know very well. We have worked with them over the years, and what they bring to our business is a very exciting space as a service business already existing. So they're already operating satellites in this mode. They already provide services on AIS and others. And they already own their own constellation, ground network of services, and they will bring to us capabilities that will enhance and accelerate our space as a service business. Next slide, please. So in terms of our strategic agenda going forward, we have had a plan since last year, since I arrived in the company, to improve our performance. So reducing our costs, introducing more standardized products and platforms. Focusing very much on constellation customers and operating satellite networks, so part of our space as a service business. Increase our production capacity by streamlining our processes, grow and improve our capability in service provision. So this is what we are doing, for instance, by acquiring SpaceQuest, but maintaining the high reliability, quality, and performance that we are known for. And then we want to grow. We want to grow our production capacity from the custom designs we do currently of about 8 satellites a year to 20. But of course, we can build much larger constellations already. So if you come to us and say, I want 100 satellites exactly the same, we can do that right now. But when they have changes, engineering requires engineers' time. And currently we can do about 8, but we want to actually increase that to 20. We are acquiring companies that bring value to the business. So we have done that with Hyperion, and we are doing that with SpaceQuest. And we want to continue to look at other companies that do that for us. And geographic expansion, we have now expanded into the US with the SpaceQuest acquisition, and we are also now part of the OTC QX market in the US. And we continuously develop new space as a service offerings. So we are currently working with several customers on that exactly.
We only have about 1 minute left.
Yeah, okay.
You're making a presentation too thorough for our time.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that.
No worries. Could you sum up in 30 seconds why you should own AAC Clyde Space?
Yes. So we operate as a company. We operate very much in a very fast-growing market. We are actually delivering very advanced technology, but also novel services that no one else is delivering. And we are growing very fast, and we have a very high potential of growing in the next few years. So that is what I would like you to take away from this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Interesting presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.